Nightmare, or Transient Presents Beyond the Nightmare, sponsored by the publishers of Cult, Divinity Lost, Helmgast AB. I am your host, Transient, also known as Sam, and joining me tonight, as always, except for the one time that they didn't, is my co-host, Marlo. Tell everyone how you are and throw some plugs in there while you're at it.
I'm doing okay. I'm about the middle of a full evening's run of tabletop games, so I'm holding strong. Um, I am here and doing a lot of things. So I have, if you can find me on Twitter at Marlo Bogwitch, I have a pinned post that has everything I'm in, and I'll just let you look at that if you're interested in following me in other spheres, spaces, things that I'm doing. That would be the place to go because it's a lot to read off, and I'm trying to reserve energy at this point. But obviously, check me out here on Wednesday nights from 6 to 9 Central, playing Cult, where I play Emily, the ex drug addict, not very great person who's going insane.
Yeah, she is having a little bit of a rough time right now. But also joining us is our guest tonight and our newest cast member, Nico. So tell everyone how you are and where they can find you.
Yeah, hey, I'm Nico, like she said. I play Hugh Chroma on Sleep Saith the Night Mother, a Southern fried fry cook that is just really wondering what the hell is going on at this point. Like Marlo said, I mean, pretty much everything I'm doing is on my Twitter profile and my pinned tweet. It's a Satan Solarist. As in a person, the studiers of Solaris from the novel. Nerd. But yeah, pin tweet. Mostly just writing. Working on some on a short story, and I've just got random stuff. Sleep Saith the Night Mother is the first live play I've done in a very long time. So my play stuff isn't very widespread yet. I'm working on that.
Well, we're definitely glad to have you. So listeners, we are having some weird internet stuff that seems to be trying to stable itself out. So we're warned we might have some hiccups, but we're doing our best. If not, it is recording, so it'll be released later. I can always just set it to replay at 8 when it's supposed to come out anyway. So tonight we're going to be talking about Nico's experience with Sleep Safe the Night Mother. But first, what is your background with horror? I know you've been playing since the 80s. Has it always been horror tabletop?
Well, I mean, it was 84 when I really first started playing with the D&D white box, and it was mostly D&D for a while. There was actually a few this local guy had a homebrew system, and we did some my first exposure to homebrew games, and it was straight horror. So that was really my kind of about 88 was probably my first in-view. Did Chill in the 90s, and then really started getting going about 93, 94 with World of Darkness. And really then just there was some horror with GURPS, that kind of thing. And into the 21st century, I hooked up with a college friend, and the majority of our games actually have ended up being horror. We've done horror spin on Fiasco. He's done a lot of stuff with drama. I haven't really done much with the new World of Darkness stuff. I've kind of perused it. But yeah, I'm really enjoying Cult at this point. It's a nice balance of I mean, really what's become, it kind of loosely powered by the apocalypse, and I've really enjoyed the majority of the stuff I've encountered of that style.
Yeah,
Trying not to ramble too much.
No, you're okay. You're the guest. Yeah, World of Darkness has a really big place in tabletop for me. It's one of my favorite systems to play in, Old World of Darkness. The New World of Darkness, like Chronicles of Darkness and stuff like that, their systems are okay, but I didn't like the complexities they were trying to add in with movements and things like that. I'm definitely more of an Old World of Darkness gal.
I dig the lack of definite origin for vampires. I definitely prefer that. Like nobody has any real idea, and the idea of blood potency and it going down as they sleep. Really giving a purpose to vampires entering torpor. It's like, well, crap, I can only eat vampires. Better take a nap. But yeah, it just the kind of missed the idea. And really, I think going the simulationist route is kind of probably the wrong way.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. So outside of tabletop, what was your first introduction to horror? Like, how old were you when you first encountered horror as a genre?
Uh, First real exposure to something that like genuinely scared the shit out of me was probably Gremlins. Um, I don't know who else is in the age range to have to actually remember the ad campaign of that movie, but it fucking lied. Uh, it was the same kind of weirdly skewed ad campaign that they kind of did with Ghostbusters too. My parents take me to see this funny ghost comedy, and I end up seeing my first on-screen fellatio. Uh, but yeah, Gremlins really, scared me, startled me, disgusted me, and I had the weird experience at like 8 or 6, I think. Yeah, it was 84. 6, really enjoying the experience. Um, and there really wasn't much that I had access to that kind of gave me that feeling again. Until I was staying at my grandparents' house, and they had one of these. This was about 86. They had a satellite dish, and in 86, a satellite dish meant a 10-foot diameter satellite dish in the backyard that you had to, with the remote control, manually position. And my ass at like midnight crawls into the TV room, adjusting the satellite dish that's outside, going, hoping to God it doesn't wake anybody up. Glad we're in the country. And I find what pretty sure I remember being Joe Bob Briggs doing a run of the Universal Horror. And so I saw Wolfman, I saw Dracula, up into like the Invisible Man, like the first real like 10-year run that they did. Um, and then they showed the Blob, and that was very different. The Universal stuff was spooky, kind of creepy, and the Blob was just terrifying. Uh, and then in like 88, 89, my stepfather and my brothers took me to see Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, and that was just, I was kind of over at that point, and I haven't left since.
Was part 5 the first one you saw out of the series?
Yeah, actually, saw it in theaters, in a theater in Cobb Cinema 8 in Huntsville, Alabama. It is now a Tractor store. Actually, that was both my first movie theater, and next door was like the second location of my first game store. Um, so that whole strip is now just a Tractor store. But yeah, Saw 5, Dream Child. It's the one after the Rennie Harlan directed one, I think. I'm pretty sure he did I'm pretty Harlan did Dream Master, right? I think. Anyway, saw that and was just fascinated and tracked down. We had this. I want to say it was a family video that we went to, and I just started gorging myself on the horror section, mostly going off of covers. So I saw the whole up to that point Nightmare on Elm Street series. I saw Hellraiser. At that point, it was Hellraiser and Hellbound, and I saw Basket Case, all far too early. But I mean, I loved it. I got hooked.
Yeah, horror is interesting, and once you're a fan of it, it just keeps drawing you in more and more. I feel bad that the first Nightmare on Elm Street experience was number 5.
Yeah, it wasn't, but I mean, you know, I think I was at the right age for that to kind of just wall-to-wall schlock to really sing to me. But yeah, when I saw the original Nightmare, it blew my mind. I was just, this is very different. This is a much scarier movie.
Definitely, and that actor whose name slips my mind right now because I'm itching like crazy. I love when I see him in cameos on other horror movies, like in Wishmaster and things like that. It's always great to see Freddy pop back up once in a while.
Robert Englund, baby.
That's interesting. I wanted to kind of circle back because you talked about Joe Bob Briggs. Have you tuned into the new series on Shudder?
Haven't. I need to. I am so far behind on so many things. It's like, you know, do you know, like in the last decades, New Moon did like all of their vampires kind of meta film, like Radu Everybody. It's on Tubi, I want to say. In fact, I think Tubi has like 80% of the 90s New Moon stuff. But yeah, there's I definitely need to check out the Joe Bob thing. It's just like a contained little marathon, right?
Yeah, so I think they're releasing them every like Friday night or something like that, and then you can just go back and watch any of them on Shudder in any order you want to. But of course, you got to understand it's Joe Bob being Joe Bob. So I mean, there's some times where he goes off on a tangent about like the Miss America contest, and I'm like,
Right.
I really don't care what you think about the Miss America contest. Get to the horror. Like,
You're kind of a sexist old perv, but you know,
Yeah.
let's get to the movie. So it's just the show. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and well, it'll flip to the films and all that stuff in there. What's interesting to me is I'm not sure if all of them are on Shudder or if I don't know how that works because I don't know if I've some of them I don't know if I've seen on Shudder otherwise. So I'm not sure how that works, but
Odd. Yeah, I last thing I saw brand new was Host. Just the little 53-minute filmed and set during quarantine. Friends do a seance over Zoom kind of thing, and it gets super schlocky at the end, but they earn it. It's tight. It's really well done.
I'll have to check
And
that
then
out.
before that, the triumphant return of Richard Stanley to horror cinema that was Color Out of Space, and
Well, we may have to have you on some of our because I think every other week we're doing just like sit down and talk about a movie, and we decided the next one's going to be The Cube, and I see your stuff on Twitter all the time, and I saw you put it as like
yes.
you put it as like one of your top favorites. So I'm gonna have to.
Nope, just swallowed the button.
Yeah, if you want to jump in on that show, that's going to be next week at 9 if you can make it.
Yeah.
Cool, most likely.
Yeah, we're going to be watching The Cube every other week. We're going to have a movie review, and then in between there, we're going to try to have a guest on like we're doing this week. About movies, I think, have either of you seen Possum?
No.
How about Google? So yeah.
Yeah, I
Tell me.
suggest just Googling it real quick. So I watched the film analysis of this earlier today while trying to squint up my eyes, and it was interesting. It's a different look at abuse and trauma and how to handle it. So Marlo and I did for our film review last week, we did Dread, which was very focused on trauma and stuff. And this one is focused on child abuse and it manifesting through other objects and things like that.
This is the thing with the puppeteer and sculptor.
So
Yes.
yeah, he's like
Okay.
a puppeteer, spider puppet.
Yeah, I have heard this. Where is it?
I'm not sure we can find it. I watched a film analysis of it on YouTube.
Damn. Okay. Yeah. I remember like seeing something about it and then immediately trying to track it down, and I haven't been able to find it yet. And then I just forgot about it because I moved and got married and all this other shit. So yeah. That looked amazing.
The film analysis made it seem really cool. I plan to watch it fully. Probably was going to pick it for one of our review episodes, so I didn't want to watch it yet. I just wanted to see kind of what the themes of the themes of it were. So, but it looks really good. Everything
Is that Ryan
about
Hollinger?
it seemed awesome. Yeah, you can watch.
Yeah.
He did the review of it.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so yeah, same video.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you want to watch that, go check out Ryan Hollinger's film analysis of that. I love all of his film analysis, even though the closed captions usually get his accent wrong, so I don't know what he's saying a lot of the time. But it's a great channel, and that's a great review. The movie seems really good.
I'm not gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch the film. I'm gonna find the film and watch it. And we're not gonna watch anything about it because that's how we came into the last film. And so it's like I was totally taken by surprise. Like I didn't expect any of it for Dread. Like it was worth it.
Yeah, that was an interesting adaptation. Um, like it was kind of weird seeing such a to the line adaptation of a Clive Barker story. Have y'all seen anything about the Hulu Books of Blood? It's like they're using like as far as I can tell, they're using the Book of Blood uh, as the framing device, and then just going off on their own thing.
I haven't heard of that. The last thing I heard about Books of Blood stuff were those movies that came out like a decade ago. Well, of course, Book of Blood, and then like Dread and all of those.
Midnight Meat Train. We were
Yeah,
supposed to get
Midnight
Pig
Meat
Blood
Train.
Blues. We were supposed to get Pig Blood Blues, but that never happened. But yeah, apparently it's like it. The trailer. I saw that the trailer dropped like 2 minutes before we started, so I haven't had a chance to check it out yet. But yeah, based on the article I was reading, it just uses the framing. It says it uses the same framing device that Barker uses, which is I guess there's a framing device in the Books of Blood. Only thing I can figure is the Book of Blood, which also is another one that got adapted that was actually pretty well done.
Yeah, I like that movie adaptation.
Yeah, Midnight Meat Train was phenomenal. So yeah, it was really weird seeing just this out of nowhere trio of kind of phenomenal Barker adaptations. I start like looking longingly at my copy of A Magic and realizing that's never gonna fucking happen.
Well, I did find Possum. It looks like it might be available on Prime Video to watch. So if you have Prime Video, I'd look there first. Marlo, you have some questions?
Yeah. So to kind of circle back to our game of Cult, because we could probably sit here and gush about horror movies all day long.
Stay on target.
So how much of the campaign did you watch before your first episode?
The previous episode.
Oh, okay.
I kind of tried to pretty early got the indication that going in mostly as blind as possible would probably be beneficial. And I kind of got the idea with that last episode that not knowing what's going on is probably the best way to come in.
Absolutely. And I wanted to say, like, you did a fantastic job on just being like, what? And I mean, I'm sure a lot of that was like totally like, okay, yeah, you probably didn't know. But like that was really good because it's like I didn't know how much of it you really did know. So it's like we're telling you all this stuff and you're like, I just met you. I was just in my house. How did I
I was in my living room and now I'm in this other kitchen. It's not my kitchen. Went down a hallway. I don't know what's going on.
That's awesome. So do you have any thoughts about how we can any ideas about how we can kind of bridge the gap between characters who are traumatized, highly traumatized by the things they've experienced just recently, and a character who's just coming into this being like, what? This is weird.
I don't know. I think maybe the trauma and the just bog ignorance kind of play well with each other. It's like everybody's just like, oh god, not more, just make it stop. And Hugh's just, what the hell just happened? What who are you? What the fuck was that? Screw it, I'm gonna fall. So yeah, I mean, it just I don't know. I'm still kind of in love with how smoothly it played. The fact that the mechanics were completely invisible. That
Hey, you
it,
should have been here for the first 2 episodes.
well, good to know. It's things got ironed out, and I'll take them as they are now.
We struggled. And I still struggle. So one of the things that I struggle with, and this kind of can form itself into a question as well, is usually when I role play in third person, because it for me describing it as myself is less immersive. And I know, you know, through this whole thing, as we've moved through it, our intention was to be as immersive as possible. So, thereby like the roles and stuff being hidden and when we're talking and things like that. So was that a struggle for you, or do you usually role play that way?
It varies, read the room. I especially since lockdown, I've been doing a lot of online forum play by post, that kind of stuff, and that's like either or. And a lot of my uh, honestly, like the last 20 years, I've just mostly been like doing one shots here and there, and it really just depends on the game. Uh, a lot of the long-term stuff I've been doing, I've been running. So, but even then, it's been like Apocalypse World and Into the Odd, and just and Forged in the Dark stuff. So kind of a character over anything else. I don't know. It really depends on what the game is, what the room calls for.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's something that I think for me, I just everybody that I played with and at first for whatever reason always just used third person. And I mean, you've been playing for longer than I have, obviously. But it's just everyone always seems like they're using third person. So it's been interesting and more immersive to do first person. And like even on play by post, when I've been doing that, it's always third person. And then more recently, Sam and I did one or working on one in first person, and it's like this is so much different the way you get to express yourself, and the lines that aren't there. So yeah.
You're muted.
Somehow muted me. I think it's interesting is all I was saying.
Well, that's an important distinction. But yeah, not even just third person, but like third person past. The majority of the forums I've played in are like specifically want to do third person past tense, and honestly, that's really weird for me to write in. I don't know if you read the stories and then this stuff on where Dark Stars Rise on my blog. It's plug. It's pretty much all personal. It's all first person. It's all in the element. Just it's how my brain works is I express things better if I can talk about just kind of put my head in the experience as it's going on and not having to translate that into another way of expressing it is so much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. So that could kind of lead us into another question. So, what are some of your favorite characters you've ever played in any like tabletop or play by post or anything you have?
My first like really attached character was this rigger named Shamrock. In I think we were running third edition Shadowrun. He had run out on the IRA and gotten into the UCAS in up in Seattle, and he was just this gung-ho, self-made murder bot guy that was also just deeply religious. He was incredibly Catholic. So there was that. Then I did a live action vampire game. This was around 99 2000, so around the point that the Old World of Darkness meta plot was wrapping up. It's like Year of the Red Comet and all of that. And he was a 14th gen, or I should say they were a 14th gen. They in blood, who have a interesting perk where they are able to make their own disciplines, like the first couple of levels of their own disciplines. And my storyteller was a madman and far too indulgent and let me take the first two levels of Temporis, and I just fucked with people.
Yeah.
I was gonna say you gotta talk with her about all that stuff, because I'm just now starting my first sort of vampire game, and it's been play by post so far, and I love it, and I've wanted to play it for years, but I just never got an opportunity to. So yeah, I'm gonna leave that one up to Sam to comment on.
I don't like thin bloods. As any real vampire will say, thin bloods have no place. But personally, for me, I always play Giovanni, because if I'm gonna go dark, I might as well go the darkest family that you can, and that happens to be the snuff film making Giovanni.
Hell yeah.
But I did want to go back to what we were saying about third person versus first person, which, Marlo, now that I can fully see, I'll get a post out to you at some point tonight. But I also feel like what happens with third person, especially in horror RPGs, is that it gives the players a crutch to escape from the conflict of the story itself. And you can kind of see it in other games like D&D and stuff like that as well, with players who like to focus more on the rules and number crunching than anything. But I definitely feel like by putting it into third person, you can completely separate yourself and no longer suffer the consequences of your actions in the game. But if you do it in first person, then you're having to really contemplate each decision that you make more closely, kind of tricks your brain.
Yeah, I'm really, it would take some real investment for something like a person stance to our third person perspective, I guess is the word I'm actually looking for, and to work in horror. And I mean, we've got, third person narratives work in literary horror. Like, Hill House is, well, it's past, but it's still first person. I'm, getting a little jumbled. But I mean, it can work. But I think in something that is supposed to be involving and really get a person inside the character's head, yeah, I think that could really throw a wrench and really in the investment. If that makes any goddamn sense.
It does. And I was gonna say, as a player who's been doing this, I've noticed a definite, and it's not just because it's first person, it's also horror, and it's also the way that our lovely storyteller tells the story. There is this immersiveness that I've simply never gotten with another game. And I find it being one of the games that I look forward to most as it comes up. And these players and these characters, I feel like we built like I feel like with Jay and with Ray, like I built this fast friendship with them because I was going through so much. And dealing with these horrors together, it totally changed. We like became fast friends. It was so weird because it was like, oh, we've been through so much, our characters have been through so much.
It's like, I've done community theater. I've worked in haunts. I've been, not just gaming, but performing to one degree or another most of my life. And, if you can convince your brain that something is happening, it doesn't know the difference. And you're going to physiologically respond as if the actual danger or whatever is happening. That's really what immersion's all about. And I don't know many genre in general that can really trigger that level of immersion than horror. Fear has a really good does a really good job of hijacking our rational brains and convincing us that shit is actually going down.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that we have noticed, is that there's this sort of emotional drain when you're dealing with all of this, that it's not even just like the facial acting that I do, that I can't turn that off even if we're not using camera. I can't turn it off. But it's something that it is truly the next day I feel like, oh. So it's that sort of bleed between you and your character there that they talk about. and it's truly been an experience for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, it will do things like make you completely forget what you were going to say when you hit the unmute button. Oops.
Ah. Oh, that's great.
It happens. It happens. So I know with Hugh Chroma, I kind of threw them into the scene kind of fast. Um, were you expecting them to drop in that quickly? Were you expecting a more of a slow build up?
I was expecting a little more lube, but you know, I can deal with it when I can. It worked good. I mean, he dropped me in and blew my mind, and he was in there for better or worse.
I'm dying. I'm sorry, guys. uh, yeah, it was really interesting to just have this person, this totally normal. I mean, normal is relative, but this totally uh, recently traumatized person show up and just be like, "Oh, hey guys, what's that? You're talking to the Night Mother? Whomst is that?" Uh, w-
Oh
uh
shit, there she is.
yeah,
Still doesn't help.
that was really good. I gotta compose myself, so let Sam ask another question.
You broke Marlowe.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the way Hugh Chroma kind of handled the whole situation. They got to also see a different experience for the town than Emily and Jason has. The benefit of Hugh Chroma is that they're still in the second cycle, whereas Emily and Jason are pretty much third, almost fourth cycle now. So all three characters are kind of seeing different things than everyone else, which kind of became clear last week with Jason's visions of the Night Mother helping him out, and things like that. So had Hugh ever killed anyone before that they shot Stella in the head? Because I was I was intrigued by that. Hugh really seemed to be affected by that.
Yeah, Hugh's not even killed a kitten, man. I mean, it as you know, the character in my head, they're this they're pretty rough professional cook, you know, on the line, uh, pirate crew, and also like hardcore goth. Uh, so they definitely have a perception of themselves as somebody who knows how to just handle shit. But yeah, that's the most mind-blowing thing that's happened to Hugh at this point is yeah, they were not prepared to do that.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna get a lot crazier for them as well if if that's already starting to shake them for sure.
Yeah, they're an easy mark.
And that's what I think is interesting about this game specifically is I think the cast, none of us are we're not like paranormal investigators. We're not like trained marksmen or anything like that. We're all very normal people. And that's what I like about it because sometimes you get in these games where people want to play someone who's so OP, so overpowered. Um, so for Hugh, what does Hugh have any special skills other than being a cook?
No advantages. Yeah, I mean it's all just background and basic the basic spread. Um, the disadvantages have kind of started leaking in a little bit. Well, more the drama hooks. But yeah, no advantages at this point. They are like straight sleeper.
That's good. But I mean good with a knife though, right? Because they are a cook.
Oh yeah, they got knife skills till Tuesday. Uh,
That's awesome. Um, so other than I had a question and now it's gone too. Man, my brain is dead. Uh, Sam, do you have another question while I reformulate mine?
I think it's just because we're doing it so much earlier in the night. We're not prepared mentally. I want to say first what you're saying about overpowered characters, because I know I had to, in our play-by-post, I had to iterate that my character is not overpowered because of the restraints on it. Which, for those interested, I play a Frankenstein's monster-esque psionic character. Very powerful, like Galarian's or Rayon's or Akira style psychic. But every use of that psionic kind of destroys their body more and more.
I can feel cowrie inside me. Yeah. Yeah, I mean it. I have a unpopular opinion on min-maxing and power gaming, and that's basically it's fine. And really, I mean, it's kind of understandable if a certain system I'm not going to name by name spends like 40% of both of its core rule books talking about combat, creating a character that is adept at combat that gives you a considerable amount of agency in combat is really the only way that you're not going to be sitting on your damn hands during combat. So min-maxing in, like, we'll say traditional role-playing games is built into the system. It's how you're supposed to do it. If you're not going to be, consistently bored during combat. And all of the little character traits and role playing and stuff like that, I mean, there's not really any rules for that in traditional role playing games. And so, the grognards will be the first to tell you that it's the role playing is what happens around the rules in those games. Now, I mean, if you're going to min max somebody in Don't Rest Your Head, or try somehow to min max in Apocalypse World, then that's just weird. And you're kind of missing the point. But yeah, I don't know if I've never been a huge fan of forcing game balance. Mostly let people play what they want to play and just build the game around them, which is, I think, a big part of what the post Forge Renaissance has really brought to the game, is that it's let us make the games around what people want to play, as opposed to the game dictating exactly what we're going to do.
Yeah, I think a big part of that too is because of Gygax's love of war games, which war games are great. I really like Warhammer 40K, but it's not built for role play. Role play should be about role play, in my opinion. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. For those kind of games, I myself min-max, just because every table I've ever been at playing D&D, it's what everyone is doing, and the role play comes second. And so if I even want my character to be noticed, I need to min-max.
And D&D is fantasy curtains on a tabletop war gaming house. I mean, that's where it started. So, and pretty much the majority of the legacy stuff that D&D has just refused to let go of is all tied back to that wargaming past. So pretending that it's not a combat simulator is just kind of weird.
Yeah, I think that speaks a lot to the more recent sort of renaissance of games in which that role playing is the thing that is at the forefront and center of it. To your point, we talk about PBTA games, and we talk about even little the one page lasers and feelings hacks and stuff. These are centered on you role playing through a scenario, and you know are you going to min max in a scenario where you can basically role play through success? Probably. If I'm a GM and you describe something cool, I'm not going to throw something at you to stop you. And I think it's just a change, and it's one of the things for me. Like, I love D&D. It's what I started out on, and it's great in a lot of ways. And it's really crappy in a lot of ways, giving the people around it and the fan bases and things. But I'm sick of it. I'm tired of playing these OP characters that are. I want to play someone who's vulnerable, who's scared, who's concerned about their well being.
Yeah, and without that feeling that your character is vulnerable in combat, you kind of lose. I feel like you kind of lose that connection with them. You're more so playing like a cartoon character.
Exactly. I think Nico froze. They're not moving.
Yeah, I think that is the case. So we're gonna try and get our guest back into the chat while we do that. I know we don't have a bunch of listeners tonight, probably because of the earlier time. But for those couple who are listening, this is going to be reposted up as well for everyone to re-listen to. Just because it is way earlier than our normal time, I didn't expect a bunch of people to be here. So
the cat hit the airplane mode button. So I missed like the back half of whatever you were saying, Marlo. Sorry.
No worries. I think I was just saying, basically, I'm here. I want to play games where I'm vulnerable, and I don't want to play. I get tired of that sort of hung up in that sort of overpowered. I'm gonna beat everybody's ass type character.
And really, I mean, if I want to do that kind of game, I just play Rifts. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of the Palladium system, but I mean, Rifts or Fate, and just play a game that lets you do that and that embraces it. Uh, and I've some of my best times have been D&D through various editions. Not really fourth, and that's not anything on fourth. I think it was a pretty impressive adaptation of the MMO experience into a tabletop game, which was honestly pretty cool. I just never played it,
I
but
love fourth edition.
I mean, it looked cool, and I think it was probably the more honest edition as far as what it was looking to do. It was, stuff was super combat centric as far as the straight up rules went. As far as I could tell, people had defined abilities and roles in combat, and I think that really kind of let D&D shine for a bit. Fifth edition has some good lessons. It took some good lessons here and there. There are some. I've had one of my favorite of late experiences in tabletop gaming was a Adventures in Middle Earth, the 5e hack of the One Ring. It was a lot of fun. Played a Hobbit Bounder, got himself cut in half because he got a little too bold. But I mean, D&D has its place, and just it's good to have a game with the kind of accessibility and availability that D&D has, just for being so big and owned by goddamn Hasbro. And it is the reason for role playing being such a huge thing at this point. And other games people have found other games and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, it was the push with Critical Role and a lot of that stuff, and with actual plays, that really got us in this crazy situation we're in. I have never seen anything like the explosion we are in right now. It is seriously blowing my mind, the number of people I see on a daily basis neck deep in role-playing games, and it's amazing.
I agree. I'm relatively new to the streaming world, and I just didn't like. I knew Critical Role was a thing. What is it? Adventure Zone, is that the other one? I know there's some really big ones out there, and I had listened to some on and off, but I just didn't know there were so many streaming opportunities and people doing it. I mean, obviously Twitch is a thing, but it's just mind-boggling how many channels there are, how many people are doing it, how many people are open to just having anybody in their sessions, and then you bring in addition to that, you bring in these folks that maybe didn't belong in the space. Maybe they're not such great people. And I think there's this sort of boys club of D&D that's been brewing for so long, that there's so many people stuck in these old terrible mindsets. So it's just wild.
Yeah, speaking about including people at the table, inclusivity is a really big thing right now. And what you said is exactly right. Sometimes trying to be inclusive ends up having terrible people in your group. And then the problem is once they've been there for a couple sessions, it's really hard to get them back out of the group because they're kind of invested.
And anybody who wants to pretend that that wasn't the stupid mute button, one of the primary issues of strictly tabletop play is lying to you, or they just haven't spent a lot of time doing tabletop play. Because the notorious issue with tabletop play gaming in person is schedules. And that has always been the central problem. And so when you find a group, you glom onto them and they say, okay, we're going to do this week, and then we're going to do this next week, right? Yeah, we're good. We're going to do this. We're actually going to play. Awesome. Oh, wait, he's an asshole. Shit. But if we kick him out, we only have like 2 people. Damn it.
And having the internet has been amazing for that, because you literally, if I say I can only play Wednesday nights, you have this whole group of people, this, however many thousands of people are in this community to say, oh, I am also available Wednesday nights and I can also play that game. So getting that sort of uh, being able to do that is great. But how do you, and this is the same thing, we run into this when we're talking about, okay, this person wants to join the show, let's check them out, let's look, are they, do they seem like they're good? Because if we don't really know them, there's no way to know, are they an ass, are they a creeper, are they it's really hard to tell.
Yeah, we ran into that pretty consistently with the LARPs in Tacoma. I was in Washington State from about late 97 into 2001. And it was a relatively open LARP. It wasn't a Mind's Eye Theater or Camarilla game at all. It was just completely home. And yeah, there were some deeply problematic people, let's be honest, guys, that came into it. And in Huntsville, when I was first starting out in the mid 90s, like this is like 95, 90, well, 90, 95, 96, 97. There was a dude that showed up. He had been coming for years at that point. One day he shows up in the park with a K-bar and a length of chain up on this, that's in Big Spring Park. And there's this rock wall that you're not strictly supposed to climb, but everybody does. But like, he's at the top of this rock wall screaming about how somebody had sicked the Assamites, the assassin clan, on him, and he wasn't going to come down until they made themselves known. So the cops introduced themselves to him, and that was weird.
I imagine so. I do notice that people tend to get these really deep connections with their, welcome back, Marlo, these deep connections with their characters to the point where they can't separate reality from the fiction sometimes, especially with LARP and Vampire. I ran Vampire for a couple years in my city, and it's extremely difficult for some people to separate those things. And it's unfortunate the times when, like you said, the police have to get involved in those things. But it's probably better for people to be safe in the end of it. And really the way we screen for cult is we try to make sure we won't have those kind of issues. And I try to always put a disclaimer out that we're not an actual cult or anything like
right.
that.
It's he was an extreme example, but yeah, I mean, every level of delusion as far as the game goes, I have seen consistently in most games that are on anything like a public level, especially, and really a lot of the boutique games. There was just at least one person in the community that took this shit way too seriously, and even people that were otherwise, completely functional outside of it, there was a degree of just being convinced that maybe this was a thing. And it was weird. I don't remember hearing too much about people going that overboard with like the earlier editions of Cult, even that were, we'll say, comorbid with the World of Darkness, and or Chill, or okay, well, people have always been convinced Lovecraft was real, so Call of Cthulhu just kind of picked that up by default. But yeah, I guess it was just how widespread and massive the World of Darkness was at that point. Just kind of took over the world. And I don't know, the more exposure the game has, I guess the more just statistically you're likely to draw in somebody that's not quite got a solid handle on things.
Yeah, I actually just watched, it's funny that we're talking about this. I just watched an episode of something that's on Amazon Prime Video, because I've been hitting them up for like documentaries and like dramatization shows and stuff like that. It's called Dark Temptations, and it talks about a kid who went to college and he made friends and convinced, like, they got too deep into D&D. And it was one of those moments where they over dramatize D&D, like you've seen in so much media everywhere. And they convinced he convinced his DM and one of the other players to help him kill his stepdad or something. It was like, all like, this is the evil prince, you got to kill the evil prince or whatever. And like those types of things are so rare, but it's one of those things where it's like, it's that one, that rotten apple spoils the batch or whatever type thing.
Yeah, and just consistently there's a push, like the Satanic Panic in the 80s, that people are starting to talk about drawing parallels to it, but yet no, we're not seeing anything like that. As somebody who straight lived a non-Christian D&D player in elementary school and middle school in the 80s, we're not seeing anything on par with the Satanic Panic. But yeah, I mean, you have those girls in Australia that the Peter Jackson Beautiful Creatures were based around, that ended up killing one of their mom or stepmom. They just straight up made up their own fantasy world. It's never the specific thing. It's never vampire. It's never D&D that's were the cause of it. It's just the nucleation point that the delusion took hold on. If it wasn't there, they would have just made up their own shit.
Yeah, but sorry, Marlo, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say the same thing with those girls who killed their friend over the Slender Man thing. It's the same thing. You're gonna find a reason to do it and come out of your reality. It just is.
But anything with dealing with the demimonde is, I think, just kind of customized to that kind of thinking. Just the entire basis of a demimonde setting is, things that everybody else doesn't. It's the invisible war.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was going to say with games like Cult and Vampire, especially the ways that I like to run my game with such deep immersion. I'm always concerned about crossing this line where someone will get that delusional state and stop believing. It's very easy in a game like Cult. If I took out all the moves and I told you were a sleeper and I just told you the story and had you play through it like a play-by-post, it's very easy to be convinced that these things could be going on just in the way that the game is built itself. And I feel like I love horror games. I love World of Darkness, but I definitely feel like as compared to D&D, these horror tabletop games are closer to where we're going to start seeing more of those issues as they become more popular.
They always have been. Like I said, fear overrides your reason. That's why horror games are so, both tabletop and video. That's why horror games are so much easier to get immersion. I mean, look at Amnesia. It's a walking simulator where you have to do bullshit manually opening doors, and it scared the hell out of people. And it's just pure. If you did just like a standard game without, just a straight walking simulator where you have to physically move doors, people would be annoyed. But the fact that you can have that horror in there as a shortcut to pull them into the experience, it, blew up.
I recently picked up Amnesia and tried to play it. The gameplay mechanics are like kind of awful
They're
now.
maddening.
Yeah.
No.
But it is scary, surprisingly, for its era. It was like, whoa.
Definitely, and with horror video games, especially as we move into the VR realm, it's a whole different experience because we were talking earlier about tricking your brain, and VR definitely does that. I've played a lot of VR horror. The most notable experience is that I rolled one time, which is dropping ecstasy for people who don't know, and then I played Resident Evil 7 on VR. I beat the whole game, and it
Nope, nope,
was
nope, nope, nope,
it
nope,
was
nope.
a traumatizing experience.
I can fucking imagine. Jesus Christ.
I did feel accomplished in the end though, because I was like, I fucking killed it. And
Hell yeah.
it's it's a strange experience for sure to be that connected to a game and have to remind yourself like, okay, I need to step back
Right.
from this emotional connection I've made.
She's just such a hardcore gamer. In order to like make a game harder, she has to roll to be able to get hard enough for her.
Well, I did make the mistake of like my second attempt trying to play Alien Isolation. I was just way too stoned. And I think that's a playthrough I found out that you can that the working Joes can hear the motion tracker underneath the floorboards and will follow you around. Yeah, I love horror games.
Yeah, all the AI in that game is specially built to learn what you're doing and follow your movements and sounds, even the sounds you're making outside of the game. So if you move your controller at all, it picks up that sound and can track you by it.
Yeah, I found all of that out the hard way um, until I noped.
Video
What a game.
games are a big deal for me. When I had my Twitch affiliate channel, that's mainly what it was Dark Souls and other video games. But Marla, like you were saying, I definitely have to make my own rules sometimes to make games harder.
Your goals, your skills are goals for me. I will one day be half as good as you are, and I will think I am good enough.
There's gonna be a second of dead air. I was trying to respond to something, but yeah, Marlo, don't try to be as good as I am. You'll ruin your whole life.
You think it's good until it happens, and then you're like, oh yeah, this makes everything not fun anymore.
Because literally every game is no longer fun because I have to make it so hard for myself.
As far as the majority of my play of the last Jesus, it's really been 20 years at this point. Well, not quite, about 19. Has been running. I haven't really. This is really one of the first play sessions I've had outside of like everybody's a player forum games. But I like games that I can use a little bit of horror in. So like a lot of the stuff that I've been running is like Into the Odd, which if you're not familiar, it's from Suga Games, and it's an OSR game, old school Renaissance uh, game that basically treats dungeon delving as survival horror. You are woefully underpowered. It like really leans into the random character generation, but it's all about basically your best option when meeting most monsters is to run the fuck away. Uh, I tell people that it's one of those games that I don't feel bad about TPK, because I will tell you up front, it is one of the basis one of the foundational rules of this table. Your survival is neither expected nor likely. And if you die, it's entirely your fault. Or even just with there's a lot of avenues for horror and spooky shit in Blades in the Dark, which is probably my favorite game right now. That game, I've only ever run it. I did a little bit of play testing back at the very beginning, but yeah, it runs like butter. And it's got lots of little things you can use to put the fear into the players.
Yeah, its whole rule set is very different than other rule sets I've experienced. It kind of takes a while to get players into the rhythm of it, but once they're good, it seems to flow really well. I think that's because it's built more like to be more of a TV show style tabletop play.
Right. It's actually, it's relatively demanding rules as far, it really holds you into a style of play and holds you into a format. But and there's lots of little intricate stuff inside of what is a really simple framework. But on the basis of that framework, I have gotten very different stories. Like I've done everything from like a 6-month campaign at my house to a 2-hour demo on a Free Comic Book Day 2019. I went out Free RPG Day 2019 at a local shop, Haven Comics in Madison, Alabama. They're amazing. Check them out. But I did a 2-hour one shot. I used the heist deck, and from like run down of the system, character creation to downtime was right about 2 hours. We had a little bit of time to spare at the end of the demo. But yeah, it's not sponsoring this video. I should probably say that at this point. I'm so gushing, but yeah.
I guess I can throw it. I said it at the beginning, but everyone who's just showed up, welcome to Beyond the Nightmare. Even though it's close to being done for the night, we are sponsored by Homegas AB, the creators of Cult Divinity Lost. So now that plug's been dropped in again. So what you were saying earlier, I kind of I have a hot take about this, which I see a lot of people upset about, which is usually players, not GMs, is that players have a hard time with their characters dying, or the GM trying to kill their players, which in a game like D&D where it's so heavily focused on you're the heroes, you need to get through this, that makes sense. But I play horror tabletop, and when I recruit you, I'll tell you right off the bat that you are likely to die in my games. Memento mori. Remember, you will die if you sign up for our games, and that happened to Jay's character very early on. It's almost happened to the other characters as well. But a lot of people do not like that viewpoint. They think that the GM should be there to guide you through the story and to ensure that you're successful all the way through. And I'm sorry to say, folks, that is not my goal. There's a reason I call myself the Night Mother while we were playing Sleep Say at the Night Mother. My goals are her goals, not the player's goals. And that I feel brings the challenge of horror tabletop, is that it is a players versus GM in world game, with all horror tabletop. And I think that players need to be able to realize that and be more willing to let their characters die if the story says they should.
As long as the table is cool with it, it's fine, and it will likely be a very fun game. I have no problem doing TPK. I've also, have people that are absolutely shocked that I'm like really enjoy and celebrate when I have a TPK in a game that I don't mind doing TPKs, because yeah, player versus GM can be perfectly fine. It's like the game of sorry is a thing, and it's a fun game. Competitive games are fun. And the GM is just another player. They just have a slightly different job. Everybody's job is to have fun and tell a cool story. And if that's how you can make that happen, cool. Just, don't be a dick about it. And that's a lot of the problem that people run in with too, with GM versus players, that, you have that, again, it goes back, grognard is an appropriate term here. It goes back to that really roots, old school DM mindset that was just drilled into us. I mean, that's what everybody was talking about. Being a DM was just blowing the players' minds with this stuff. And sometimes that's not what you want to play, but sometimes it's cool and it can be a lot of fun, I think, is my point that I'm taking a really long time to get to.
Well, I think, when you take we look at any kind of media. You know, you look at different genres of media. You look at a horror movie, you look at a like action movie. The loud explosions, the like, you know, like guitar riffs and stuff, though that wouldn't work. Excuse me, but my mic. I'm sorry, guys. That wouldn't work so well in a horror game necessarily. You know, it just depends on the story you're trying to tell. And if you come into a game like D&D and expect the rules to work for you for a horror game, you can play horror. I've played horror D&D. You can do it, and it is a thing. It's just the way the game mechanics are set up, it's not meant to make you feel powerless, like we said earlier. And so having games where I can die makes me think harder about the choices I'm going to make. You know,
This happens every time the space button stops working. You can do horror with D&D, and you don't even have to use Ravenloft's racist ass.
that made me laugh. Yes, Ravenloft is very yeah, racist. But there's, you know, I've played games like Fear Itself, and I like Fear Itself, but it really works better for a long-term campaign. If you're running something short, Fear Itself is not a great game for that. You know, the way you pick skills and stats. So I think not only curating your like what type of game you're trying to play, but the length and the character creation and all of that is very important. And I think Cult does a great job of being simple to create a character because, you know, your character is kind of expendable, honestly. Uh, so I will say that, not to say that Fear Itself is not as good as Cult, but you know, Cult is sponsoring us. You know, if Pelgrane Press, if you want to come sponsor a game of Fear Itself for us, come on then. But you know, truly, I like Cult better for the mode that it's used in.
Yeah, any horror publishers out there, if you have a game you want to sponsor us to play live, we will definitely do it. We have a great cast. So just hit one of us up.
Be interesting to see if 10 candles could work in a isolation situation.
I had an opportunity to play 10 Candles and I did not. And I should have. Something happened. But yeah, um, there's so many great horror games out there. I'd like to set up, and I'm not trying to put more on my plates, but here I say it. I'd like to set up more little horror one shots and different things for us to run on the channel, just to kind of see like, what do we like, what do we not like, what works better in this type of setting, and play. It'd be interesting.
One I've gotten recently is, and it's been bounced around for a bit, but I hadn't really taken that much of a look at it, is Kids on Bikes, which is just, yeah, that is such a pretty little game. I love the concept. It's the, you know, pre-horror of my childhood was Goonies and Monster Squad, you know. So and now you know, there's some pretty intense actual horror that that takes on that setting, you know, not just by Stephen King.
Kids on Bikes is fantastic. It was one of the first games I ever streamed, um, like 6 months ago when COVID first started, and I was like feeling, my outgoing self was feeling terribly alone. And I got in on a one shot of Kids on Bikes and loved it, loved it, loved it. And it's got that very Goonies vibe. And you know, more recently, what's, my brain's dead.
Stranger Things.
Stranger Things, exactly the word I was looking for. Stranger Things has been really big lately. You know, it's pulled TTRPGs up to the front with D&D and stuff like that. It created a huge outpouring of people trying it because they'd seen it in the thing. And to be able to capture that sort of storytelling is, it's truly a lot of fun. I don't have a lot of times I have my other show that I'm on, my podcast that I'm on, where I play a kid. But usually I like to play very adult things. I like to play horror, I like to play high drama, I like to play high, like, things happen. And just playing something so simple is like a root back to your childhood. It was great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
people popping.
Go ahead, sorry.
I was gonna say people popping like water balloons.
Yeah, you know, there was a earlier job on the kids group horror thing that was called Little Fears. I'm not sure how connected it was to the Little Fears that's out now, but it was this grim, dark role playing as children trauma analog thing. And a group of friends and I played it like once, and like I don't know, the after session of that game, I don't know, like the moment of self-reflection in the middle of Last House on the Left, like if somebody had been filming us, that's kind of what it felt like just kind of disgusted at ourselves at what we had just done. And just, yeah, it was a while. I think that may be one of the reasons I didn't touch kids on bikes until like in the last few months, because just it left a deeply uncomfortable uh, reflex or taste in my mouth, saying kid horror.
Yeah, and I am a parent, so and I try to be pretty open about that. And
Yo, me
so
too.
and so it's hard now that I have a child to deal with that type of stuff, just because I keep seeing my beautiful little angel child going through this, and I'm like, oh. So that's why I don't do like child abuse in games and stuff. That's like I'm like, if it happened, it's a veil. It happened, and you can admit that it happened, but I don't want to hear details because I can't.
That was the problem. Little Fears, that was its whole shtick, was horror as abuse analogs, and it just whew. There was some stuff in the 90s that went, yeah.
I mean, like any of the Black Dog World of Darkness books are a great example of that.
Jesus, yeah. I used to, I mean, of course, that I was at the age range and mindset that shit just sang to me at the time. I was a grim, dark little horror nerd goth, 13, 14 to 16-year-old. But yeah, the actually I think the only Black Dog book I have left is the Spectre Player's Guide.
Nice. I think my favorite was the Zamich clan book. That was probably their most
Yeah.
profane book that they.
I will say that a couple of buddies of mine and I managed to do like half a session of Whole.
I don't know if that could even get that far. Marlo, do you have any more questions? I know we're getting close to time here.
Uh, yeah, I do actually. So what is Hugh's phobia? I want to know. I will not make my character know player knowledge versus character knowledge, but I gotta know.
No metagaming. Agoraphobia. That and that's actually, I was talking to when I was when Sam and I were shopping the character. I said, I'm just gonna might as well go full self-insertion and make it agoraphobia. I fairly high functioning. There was a period of about 2 years, 3 years that it had been really bad, but yeah, no, it's something I've got experience with. Uh, Despite playing mostly Malkavians for the entirety of the 90s, I try to not touch mental health stuff I don't have any actual experience with, just because ew. Uh, um, but yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see what happens. Certainly, we were talking about not being able to separate the game from reality. My delusions are all temporary and purely in game.
That's great. Yeah, I know Ray also had picked claustrophobia, and he is claustrophobic. And so for me, I don't really have any. I have like just generalized anxiety. That's his most. I don't have a phobia. So I know that that's a thankful thing. You
Everything
guys,
equally.
I am glad. I think it's crazy. I think it's not. Let me use a better term than crazy. I think it's wild that you guys are using your own sort of issues with it. But I think it's super brave, and I am super here for it because I am not sure I would be. You guys are awesome.
If I don't deal with it, if I don't address it, it gets really bad. It's one of the weird things about quarantine is that a big part of one of the ways that I manage the agoraphobia is forced socialization. Uh, so, yeah, that was a ride.
Yeah, I can imagine having to deal with being stuck in the house most of the time is not a great thing for it. I was actually talking to my therapist about that. She was like, yes, she's like, it's really, really tough. She said she's got patients who deal with it, and this is a rough time for everybody. So, hey, anybody, look out for resources if you need some help. And if you don't know where to find the resources, you can do a Google search. But if you need to hit one of us up, I know Sam and I have always said, if you need resources, talk to us and we can help you find those resources. Now, we are not therapists. We cannot help you in a real way, but we can be there and give you those resources. So definitely.
I've been dealing with, intense mental health issues my entire life, and there was a really big forward drive uh, where they really kicked in about 15 years ago, but I've been actively working on dealing with this shit like on a daily basis for the last 15, 20 years. So yeah, I can't really offer therapy, anything like that, but I do know what gets me through. I've got experience with it, and I'm you know we're stronger if we share.
Yeah, always get help if you need it. So I know we're getting close to time here. Sam, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Um, Not really. Thank you for being on the show, Nico. I'm sorry that I wasn't on cam today. I'm covered in these horrible hives and been spending most of my time just kind of itching away. So I also wasn't very talkative. Uh, it does look like I'm gonna have to be looking into kids on bikes if we want to end up doing a one shot of that. So we can kind of discuss it in the community Discord.
That'd be
Um,
groovy. And yeah, I totally understand that. And thanks for having me. I was a little worried. I know you'd been in rough shape the last few days. I was a little worried we were gonna cancel, but glad to be here. It's very cool. I enjoyed it.
I couldn't handle canceling another day. I already feel bad about Wednesday. So
Sam, everybody, I want you to know, Sam was like, I feel so bad for canceling on you guys. And I was like, Sam, you are covered in hives. You take your day. Like,
Pop some Genetril and go the hell to sleep. You're good.
yes, exactly.
So I'm going to eat and go back to sleep, I think. So this itching will stop.
Yeah, definitely. Take care of yourself, folks.
Yeah, I want to do one last plug. If you have not checked it out yet, please check out my newest adventure module that just came out last week. I think it was last week. It's called Sanctified. It's an adventure module for Frontier Gaming's Guns of Santa Terina. I'm still running the special that if you buy Guns of Santa Terina core rulebook, which is on sale for $3, and send me proof of purchase, you will also get $3 off of my adventure module as well. So check that out. It's on DriveThruRPG. You can just search Sanctified. It wasn't coming out before, but now it is. It should be the top book on there. You'll see it. Outside of that, is there anything, Marlo, would you like to plug?
No, y'all just check out my pinned tweet. But I do want to say I read through Sanctified and I really, really like it. If you're looking for something that is the right amount of information that you need to run a short module for a team, this is it. And you can build it out, you can pad it out, and that's the beautiful thing. There are some modules I think that take it a little too far. They give you way, way more than you need. You'll never ever be able to get to that level of detail. What Sam has created here is something that's really, really great. It runs super great, and there's so much you could build into it if you wanted to. So check it out, guys. Seriously, it's great.
So yeah, like all my stuff's on Twitter. I haven't had a chance to read all the way through Sanctified. I have issues with like extended periods of focus a lot of the time. But I will go on record in saying that I absolutely fucking love Western games. Dust Devils and Deadlands and Dogs in the Vineyard are chef's kiss. So, hint, Guns of Santorina is a really cool game.
Yeah, we definitely check it out. I don't want to gush over it here, but it's definitely an interesting system. It's very well made for quick pickup play. If you just want to do a small adventure, or if you want to do a larger campaign, it really kind of gives you the tools to do that without being too rule heavy. But But outside of that, I don't have anything else. Thank you all for listening. I know we did a bit earlier tonight than usual, so I will try to get this uploaded to where everyone can listen to it who didn't. Outside of that, thank you for joining us tonight, Nico.
Thanks for having me. I'll see y'all Wednesday.
We will be on Wednesday for sure. Also, look out for announcements concerning the Cult channel, because we're going to be most likely getting a show on there as well in the near future. So keep an eye out for announcements about that. Marlo, is there anything else?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Well, thank you for being a great co-host, and I'll see everyone later. Bye-bye.